Welcome back to Your Average Investor, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about Riot and Bitfarms. It's really interesting to see what's been happening this Bitcoin cycle as certain miners have been thriving and others are lagging. So as you can see here, obviously Bitcoin, we'll call it back from October of last year when it had this initial surge. Since then has been on an incredible rally, up from about 33,000 over to 70,000, 75,000, now sitting on a nice volume weighted average catch, possibly going to be pushing back up into the 70,000 range over the next week or two. Now, while that's been happening, some miners like Mara have been doing moderately well, not nearly as well as you would expect with that kind of a push up. You can see right back here is Mara's price, and as Bitcoin was surging, initially, huge surge in Mara twice. But then the sell-off brings Mara right back down into the $18 range, doing okay compared to prior to the Bitcoin surge. Then you have companies like IREN, who just recently went wild from $4 or $5 a share all the way up to almost $15 per share. And then you've got some laggards. The laggards specifically that I want to look at today is Riot. And in conjunction with Riot, what's going on with Bitfarm and this news of a hostile takeover and a poison pill. We'll get into what all of that means. I'm curious to know if you guys are holding any miners. Let me know if I missed any that you're holding, or which of these four you're holding, if you've got any Bitcoin, and what you think is going to happen. I know the big prediction is $100,000 before the end of the year. A lot of rumors circulating because of BRICS, B-R-I-C-S, that will cause a destabilization of the US dollar, which in turn will cause things like gold and Bitcoin to potentially surge. Now, Riot platforms, really interesting from a technical perspective here at this $10 range. You can see there's just this incredible amount of volume between $10 and $11, maybe even a little lower, like you go at $8.5 to $11. Lots and lots of volume. You've got the support from back here. You've got another range right here, another one here, and then more recently as well. And you might wonder why Riot is struggling compared to some of these other miners. Well, one of the reasons right now may be that they are in a fight with Bitfarms. Here's Bitfarms, and I'll show you. This is back on May 28th. Riot proposed to acquire Bitfarms for $2.3 per share, $2.30 per share. And at the time, so this again, that was May 28th. Let's see. Oops. BITF is Bitfarms. So, 20, did I get the date right on that? Yeah, May 28th. All right. So, May 28th. Where are we sitting at? 28. Right here. Bitfarm is at 2.2. They jumped up to 2.2 on the article. Prior to that coming out, they're sitting at about $2 a share. And it looks like Riot was saying that this reflects a 24% premium on Bitfarm's 1 month volume weighted average price. They're saying, take the prior month from the 28th back, which is going to be like this, right? And their volume weighted average is maybe going to be like 1.85, 1.9, something like that. So 2.2 maybe seems like a little bit of a low ball. Bitfarm definitely thought so. Bitfarm thought it was a low ball, so they rejected the offer. And then in response to that, Riot started accumulating shares of Bitfarm and encouraging a change in board governance, as well as firing of the current CEO. I think they had up to a 13% stake in Bitfarm. And as they did so, Bitfarm adopted what's called a poison pill. So the way that the poison pill works is Bitfarm basically says if by a certain date anybody such as Riot Technologies acquires 15% or more of our company, we are going to do a secondary or an at-the-money offering on the market, release more shares, and dilute shareholders. So you can see right here, they've got a float of 330 million or 33 million or so. So what they would do is they would sell more shares onto the market, and by doing so, they would be diluting Riot and preventing them from being able to attempt a hostile takeover. And what's interesting about that is it puts Riot in a catch-22, right? So if they continue to accumulate more shares of Bitfarm's obviously going to do a market offering, and when that happens, generally because of the massive amount of new shares entering the market, it drives the price down. But in response to all of this, the price of Bitfarm has actually been rising quite significantly. You can see from the time that Riot announced that they wanted to acquire, right here 2.2, it's gone all the way up nearly to $3 per share and then retreated a little bit at the end of day Friday, back down to 2.9 or 2.8 in the middle of the day. So is this bullish for Riot? Well, it could be if they manage to win their takeover bid. And there's a few different ways to play this. This is not investment advice. But one, you could say, you know what, I want to play it on the side of Bitfarm. I want to buy Bitfarm because I know if Riot wins the acquisition, that'll just be converted into Riot shares. And if not, Riot has taken a significant stake in Bitfarm. But what if Riot decides to dump its stake, right? So they announced that they've got about a 13% stake. They could have been accumulating that all through here in the 2s. And so they could just say, hey, we're just going to dump our stake here in the 2.8s, 2.9s, and it'll drive the price back down, of course, and then they liquidate their stake for maybe a small profit, maybe a break even. So that's one way to play. Is you could say I'm going to buy Bitfarm and hope that the takeover happens. These get converted to shares of Riot, and I get the premium there. Or you could just go straight out by buying something like Riot. Now, Riot, again, from a technical perspective, really interesting. In fact, I want to zoom out to a not this long of a chart. Wow. A longer term chart. We'll just go back the last 4 years or so you can see how this has been fluctuating with the price of Bitcoin. 2017, the first real big surge. I think this is when Bitcoin hit $19,000 or maybe $20,000 a share, and then a huge sell-off, and the miners followed it down to 51 cents. Then we've got the COVID surge where Bitcoin, I think, first hit $70,000 or $69,000 a share. Look at this, Riot all the way up at $80 per share here. Now this is what I find the most interesting, right? So I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit further. This was on a smaller rally in Bitcoin than the current rally, and Riot has hardly moved at all in relation to that current rally in Bitcoin. Now, if you look at this from just a pretty standard support, let's zoom in here. You can see a pretty dang clear base of volume here at $10. Like $10 seems to be an area where people, at least for the last year, have really liked scooping up Riot. There's this couple of wicks that went below. One went really low down into the 8s and high 7s. But for the most part, what we're seeing is some price consolidation here along the $10 mark. And a couple things that I like about this is we've got a little bit of a flag forming here, right? So you could say this is a series of lower highs, which is true. We've got a high here, lower high here, lower high here. But the base is staying about the same. So I'm going to put, actually I'm going to delete that price line there, and I'm going to add just a new price line back here so we can see this little bit of I'm going to call this the volume channel. So we've got a little bit of a volume channel here that it gets scooped up in. And then we've got another volume channel just above it that it gets scooped up in. So you can see, and I'll move that one here. So it's capturing most of this volume, all of that volume, and then the rest of this volume here. So really strong trading happening in this range. And then these rallies tend to sell off quite quickly, right? Really robust rally for several days, followed by maybe a month-long sell-off. Robust rally, a couple week sell-offs over and over. So what I like is you've got decent support here, right? So if Riot drops back down over this takeover attempt into the 9s again, and especially into the 8s, I think that's a buy opportunity for a flip. If you like it long term, you like it long term, that's great. But I'm thinking more of just strict day trading. The other thing that we're seeing here, of course, is as this price consolidates, eventually it's going to have some sort of breakout, right? So you can see a kind of a larger flag forming here and a potential breakout coming. If I zoom in even further, then you can see there's this little mini flag kind of forming right here, right? So you can see where this support is. If I added another support line down here in this series, and it squoze into this. This would be the mini flag, and then it just recently broke out above that. And if we have another breakout, I don't think it's unreasonable to see Riot back at $14 to $16 per share. So that represents some pretty good upside potential. 10.5 to we'll call it 10.5 to 16. And then on the downside, it'd be like 10.5 down to, maybe you'd have your stop loss around 9. If it breaks 9, then that might be an indication that it's moving lower. The other thing I love about this, though, is there's good income generation off of the covered calls. So, and you could do cash secured puts too, right? So I could go here and I could say, wow, look at this. I can sell these put 10s 1 month out for 75 bucks. So I'm making a 7.5% return per month on that put 10, as long as it doesn't get exercised. And if it doesn't get exercised, I turn around and sell covered calls and I'm good too. Or I buy 100 shares right now for, 1,055. And then I sell these call 11s for $90, $95 maybe if you split that bid ask. You're making about a 10% or maybe 7.5%, 8% return there as well. The weeklies, they're not quite as good, but they're still kind of interesting, right? Like this is, you're talking about just a few days of holding this, and you could go on these cash secured puts, these put 10s for 15 bucks. It's not the best, but 1.5% for holding that for a week, not too bad at all. So this I'm watching it closely, and as my GameStop position closes out at some point over the next month or two, I may look at entering into Riot, expecting something to close with this Bitfarm deal, or maybe it will just go away entirely and they'll focus back on their core operations. But either way, I think that Riot is a laggard in the miners right now. And because of that, there's a lot of potential as Bitcoin hype builds again to have Riot run pretty significantly, maybe up into, again, I think 16s is very reasonable, up into the 18s. We definitely have some resistance up here at $18, $18 per share. And then, above that, let's actually pull this back out a few more years. We're going to go 4 years out so you can see it. So if we get above this, this $20 mark, now we're looking back here, right? So if you look back, $20 is now going to be acting as some sort of resistance, whereas before it was acting as an okay support here, and then even a little above it here, and then it turns into resistance right here. So above that, if we can get 20 to hold as a support, then the next level that we're looking at is probably somewhere right around $30. There's a pretty large group of volume traded right there in between the $20 and $30 range. So I would guess that $30 starts acting as the next resistance. And then certainly if it busts through 30, 40 is going to be the next level to watch. You can see here a good number of times where Riot pulled back at the $40 range as it was moving down a few years back. So interesting technicals. Again, we've got this little bit of a bull flag forming and a mini bull flag that just broke out. I think a rise up into the 16s is reasonable, maybe up into the 20s. Anything higher than that, I think, would have to do with some sort of new news cycle or hype cycle around Bitcoin. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Hit that subscribe button. Catch you next time.